Okay, so I'm back, and I actually just did a little bit of research, and I found out that K Michelle, if this is the correct information, is 1 year older than me. So it would be Rihanna would be the youngest, then I would be the second to the youngest, then K Michelle would be 1 year older than me, then it would be Kim K, and then Kimberly Jones would be the eldest, which is what we said in ancient times, the eldest of the five corners. Um, and she would have been 10 years older than myself. So as I stated, now that I know the correct ages to my knowledge, I hope those are the correct ages. Um, you know, as I stated, Kimberly Jones, the age gap, we would have been tag-alongs, just, some little scrubs tagging along, like, so that's what would have been that, but she would have been like kind of a big sister type of friend, you know what I mean, a friend, but just, wiser, just more experienced and whatnot. So she was that person in the four corners, the eldest, and as I stated, Miss Fenty would have been the youngest. So basically, now that I have that information, I need to clarify and correct some facts I just stated. Not too much is different, but basically, K Michelle would have met me as when I was a baby. She would have been one or not even one when we met, so we were actually closer in age. So basically, I just really need the correct ages. I just was under the assumption that K Michelle was younger than me because I had previously looked on the website and it said something different than what I just found. So I just I need the correct ages because it's relevant. So there you have it. So if that is the correct information, that would make K Michelle 1 year older than myself. So basically, we would have all been childhood friends, and at some point in our lives, we would have lost contact or just hadn't not speaking as much. Different occurrences in each of our lives, different situations throughout the kingdoms, different just occurrences within history and whatnot would have changed our friendships and altered our friendships and our lives as well. So as I stated, K Michelle, her family would have been very prestigious as well within ancient Egypt due to the fact that herself and Memphis were in an arranged marriage. Okay, so basically, like I stated, K Michelle, whether she was younger than me or older than me, she always had an opinion. She was very opinionated, always. But it was a good, it was a good opinionated type of person. It wasn't someone, annoying or, just because there's opinionated people that are annoying, and then there's opinionated people that you laugh or they're right. You're learning things. They just basically she didn't take no shit from anyone, and you shouldn't. But she didn't take shit from anyone basically. So she still has that personality to this life cycle. So as I stated, the life cycles will be similar but not exactly the same. Hold on. Yeah, this is a little better level. So basically, yeah. So and then, she would her one of her many talents and positions would have been as an entertainer, as a singer, and that would have not been her only occupation. So I am led to believe that K Michelle This is what the energy I'm getting, and some of the information I got since I ended the last video, which I did end suddenly, and I forgive for that reason. But I was pretty much at hours as well. But I just want to do them at least no more than an hour at a time, because I don't want to overwhelm anyone, and sometimes I need a break too from speaking and making a video. So I just don't want to make them so long. No more than an hour for each video. So basically, it leads me to believe that her family would have been, I have to confirm this, I still have to confirm this, but as I stated, just as Kimberly Jones, she would have been her family would have been someone of great prestige. And, liquor and, wine, different alcoholic beverages were part of ancient times. Wine was pretty much the most popular during ancient times, wine. So I still have to confirm this, and I will confirm it as soon as I find out the correct information, that she would have come from a very prestigious family of who owned vineyards and winemakers. So basically, since that was the most popular alcoholic beverage during ancient times, it most likely would have been wine. There were other alcoholic beverages, but wine was really the most popular. So I still have to confirm it, but that's really what I'm getting right now. So that would have meant, again, great status, great prestige, because wine is very, very important. Well, not important, but it was very popular and very important within within ancient times. So I'm pretty certain that I do have to confirm it, but yes, winemakers. So her family, her parents, would have been very prestigious and popular winemakers, and grapes. So, because it was not just wine. If you made wine, you also had grape products. We had grapes, which were very, very extremely popular in ancient times throughout the whole world. With the different deities and with everyone. So, again, when you're talking about grapes and wine, those are very, very important products during ancient times as well as now. So, grapes are used in many things, different products, different culinary ways, in different products, health and beauty products. So wine, wine is very important, and it was very popular. So, they would have been very prestigious. That leads me to believe, since she was in an arranged marriage with Memphis, that would mean her family was one of the greatest winemakers / producers of grapes within ancient Egypt. So they would have been very prestigious. So I will get more details on that and confirm that as soon as I can confirm that, but I am about pretty much 100% sure that is what it is. But I do like to confirm things all the time before I say it's set in stone. But that's pretty much probably what it's going to be. That's because I wouldn't get that feeling. I don't waste my time. So, one second. Interruption. No, it's fine. It's fine. But anyway, excuse that little hiatus. But basically, yes. So that's basically their title would not have been. See, the titles are different. So in ancient times. So her parents would have been gods and goddesses of grapes and of wine making. Wait, well, I'm sorry, gods and goddesses of grapes and wine. Um, so I just would like to do more research on her family and her parents, just to get more details and whatnot, because it helps to do research on the lives of different people, because I just need to know a little bit about the people, to be able to correctly and positively identify what they did in ancient times, what their positions were they negative, were they positive, and that type of thing. So basically, that was a very prestigious position, gods and goddesses of grapes and wine. There's also one second. Okay, we are back. This is, well, you know what? I really prefer, I don't know, I'm just going to be honest. I just prefer to do these videos alone, so I don't have any interruptions or anything like that, background distractions and whatnot. But you just got to do what you got to do. So that's the truth. But basically, I'm going to get back to it. So basically, I want to say Greece. In ancient Greece, the ancient Greek god of wine was Dionysus. And that I do know for a fact. So, there were, different people had the same positions, within different kingdoms, because, it would just be so much responsibility if one person was responsible for one thing as important as grapes and wine, so basically, her parents would have been the god/goddess of grapes and wine, the ancient Egyptian goddess of wine and grapes. So I have to do some research on who that is, and I just want the right stuff, because I just know the internet. You can't believe everything on there. So it's hard sometimes when people post incorrect information on the internet, because it just messes me up, because there are some things I need to know. Like I said, with the ages, way prior to this, I had seen a website that said K. Michelle was younger than me. Now I'm seeing that it's saying something different on another one. So it's, you know what I mean? I need the correct information on the things I don't know, you know what I mean? But I'll figure it out, but okay, basically, so there you have it. So that would have been how I met K. Michelle. She would have been, a year older than me, or close to a year older than me. And that we would have all been friends that way, you know what I mean? And then as I always suspected, but, being that she was the fifth corner added to the star. There is a star that has 5 points. The star has 5 points. Not a pentagram, not a pentagon. I mean, not a pentagram. I'm sorry, not a pentagon, but a star, a standard star. Okay, 5 points. So basically, Miss Fenty, Robin Fenty, which is Rihanna's real name, she would have been the youngest of the 5 corners, and the last of the 5 corners that was added to the star. So Miss Fenty, as I've stated, was a monarch, heiress herself, a princess within, basically overseer of the ancient Caribbean kingdom. Her family would have been overseer of the ancient Caribbean kingdom, specifically Jamaica, which I also stated was the overseer of the Caribbean kingdom within ancient times. So Robin Fenty would have been heiress to the Caribbean kingdom. So basically, these women, these are the other four, these women, we would have really just been the closest out of all, just the closest of friends between, anyone else, any of the other heirs and heiresses and whatnot, because that's just how it went. There were many, many heiresses to important kingdoms around the entire world and galaxy, and I'll get to that soon, the galaxy. But basically, people are closer with certain people than they are with others. That's just how it works. You meet many people in your life, but you only hit it off and become, build friendships, relationships, close relationships with certain people in your life, because you meet a lot of people in your life, but everyone you don't click with, you don't hit it off with, you're not friends with or that close with, as opposed to, some other people. So the five of us would have been the closest, five of us. So Rihanna, as I stated, she would have been heiress, the youngest of the five corners, the star. She would have been heiress, a monarch, heiress, a deity and monarch, heiress to the Caribbean kingdom. And, the Caribbean kingdom, they had many, many, many contributions within ancient times, as each and every empire and kingdom throughout the entire world, each region and kingdom had great contributions. And I stated some of the contributions from the Caribbean kingdom, like seafood, and they would have had the best seafood, the best marijuana, the best other herbs and fish and seafood, marijuana, other medicinal herbs and culinary herbs. Just a lot more than that. A lot. They made a lot of contributions. So yes, basically Rihanna, Miss Fenty, she would have been the marijuana connect. Her family would have been pretty much overseers of that specific product. So see what I mean? Like, these things were very important products throughout ancient times, as they are now. So, they would have been very prestigious for that reason. So again, her parents would have been friends with Ra and my parents, and we ended up being friends. So obviously I would have met Rihanna when she was a baby. So see, this is how it works. This is why we became friends as children and in childhood, because we would pretty much meet immediately, after someone was born, after their presentation, the baby would be born. And, before the presentation, you didn't take the baby out a lot, because that would ruin the presentation. As I stated, they had presentations such as, like on The Lion King, of the baby, presentations of the baby, such as on The Lion King, such as on Roots, when Kunta Kinte had his daughter Kizzy. They were he was a slave. She was born a slave at that point, but it was African tradition. Like he raised Kizzy up, and he said her name. So that was a little presentation that he did. He tried to continue to honor the African traditions even throughout slavery. So that would have been, it would have been bigger than that in African culture. But what he did, he did what he could, as a slave. But so, basically when your baby was born, there was a small gap between when the presentation of the baby was. So, before the presentation of the baby, you didn't really take the baby out much. That would really spoil everything. And, you just wanted to, even now, you don't take, your baby's brand new, newborn. You don't take it out as much, a lot brand new. So they did a lot of the same things in ancient times that they do now. You know what I mean? So that was the situation. And then after the presentation, people were proud and happy, so they would show their children off, take them with them, meet, play dates and things like that. So, her family would have been the best at a lot of things, but marijuana and other medicinal herbs and culinary herbs in particular, which were extremely, extremely important, So they were very prestigious. Very prestigious. So I would have met Rihanna when she was a child. To my knowledge, I just looked at Rihanna's age. It said 29. So I would have been 3 years older than her. So I would have met Rihanna when I was 3 years old and she was a baby, an infant. So that is how we met, all five corners, okay? And, honestly, I don't want to get too far into detail with the four corners as of yet, because like I stated, these points I had, one of them is dedicated to the four corners and specifically, and the first life cycle specifically, because there's more to the four corners. There's more to the first life cycle than the five corners. So there's a lot of people and a lot of things that went on in the first life cycle that, are different, different things other than the five corners. So I'm not going to go great detail into the five corners, but I will say this: at some point in our lives changed. Our lives change, and things change as you get older. So different occurrences within our lives, would have changed our friendships, changed. Just a lot of things, our lives, our everything. So I'll talk about that soon. But I just started talking about the four corners, and specifically because I'm on the subject of relationships and friendship. That's one kind of relationship. So, it's just hard to maintain any kind of relationship in your life, as I stated. So, basically, I had a lot of relationships with many people that were public and people that were not public. Friendships, romantic relationships, sexual marriages. So a lot. So, just relationships in general. I really want to talk more about that on its own as well, because that's a big thing as well. But it's like, as I stated, with different relationships in your life, even as well as family relationships, like that's another kind of relationship. So you see, any kind of relationship you have in your life, it's going to take work. Family relationships, romantic relationships, etc., friendships, etc., business relationships, etc., etc. So basically, and also, as I stated in the zodiacs, when I was talking more about the zodiacs, and I also have to talk more about those at some point. But yeah, when you within the zodiacs, Cancer and Gemini would be each other's counterparts, because, as I stated previously, Cancer would be a relationship in your life, no matter what kind of relationship it is. Someone you don't want in your life, or someone you're not going to give as much power to or access to your life. You may have to cut them off completely, because those are going to be people that hold you back in life. Those are going to be people that are bad for your Those are going to be people that are bad for your progression. Just, holding you back. As I stated, and when I was talking about Hercules, the story of Hercules, and what happened to him on his journey. A Cancer in your life can come in the form of not just a relationship any kind of relationships. It can come in the form of many things, as I stated, places, people, uh, internal cancers, yourself. That could be your biggest enemy, yourself. Because if you stop yourself from doing something, you stop yourself before you even try, So sometimes someone's biggest cancer is themselves sometimes. So, there's just there's so many cancers come in so many forms, not just people and relationships. But I'll talk more about that, I guess, when it comes to cancer. And then the counterpart to cancer, as I stated, would be Gemini. And as I stated, Gemini, that's the twins. Twins is the symbol. But, the primary symbolism and meaning to Gemini is the bond. The bond between the twins is the primary symbolism in Gemini, because they have a bond like no other, closer than just they're a bond like no other. So those are going to be people. There's people like that in your life, good people that you want to mend the relationship with, people that you want to, get closer to, people that you want in your life more, because those are going to be the people that are positive in your life. Those are going to be the people that help you, and those, in many ways, help comes in many ways. Their advice, different things, those are going to be the people positive in your life and positive for your progression and your happiness and whatnot. So relationships, they come in many forms. Okay, now I'm going to I just wanted to kind of talk about the friendship. I started talking about friendships, but, I got on the subject of the four corners, more so than, a little more detailed in the five corners. Sorry, see? 5 corners than I expected. But, again, I will get into more detail with the 5 corners once I get to their specific point. And I'm sorry, again, another thing about Miss Fenty, she also would have, one of her primary occupations also would have been an entertainer, a singer, another singer. So you see, the things are going to be similar, but not exactly the same. As I stated, Kimberly Jones was not just the honey princess, she was, a poet as an adult. She was a poet, she was a musical poet, as they called hip-hop or rap in ancient times. It would have just been poetry over music. So she was a poet, a standard poet, as well as a musical poet. So basically, like I stated, similarities, but not exactly the same. So I'm just going to get off of relationships in general right now, and I'm going to move on to marriages. My marriages, okay. Okay, so this is complex, but I'm not doing marriage in general. This is more pertaining to myself. Okay, as I stated, I was in an arranged marriage, and the arranged marriages, that's another, see, these things are very complex, each on its own. So, the subject of arranged marriages, I really can talk about it, I guess, a little bit, but I won't, I'll talk about it a little bit. But basically, there was a reason for arranged marriages in ancient times, because that person, in a legit arranged marriage, you were specifically created for that other person, and usually it went, the boy would be older than the girl. So, that was the reason they did that, because they wanted the woman to be able to look to the man and feel different feelings, because they were older, protected and, safe. They could take guidance and direction, and they wanted the boys to be older than the girls for that reason. there are a lot of people in arranged marriages, not just monarchs. That was just a standard practice. It was very common, not just with the monarchs, with just in general. So, there are many people that are in arranged marriages today. They just may not know it, but I know some of who are in arranged marriages. Some are together to this day, and some are not. So I'll get to that as well. But in a legit arranged marriage, it starts at conception, and that does not mean you're going to be brother and sister. What that means is that the gods and goddesses of fertility and the gods and goddesses of marriage would have been, their responsibility would have been arranged marriages. So basically, you are created to specifically be with that person from conception. So what that means is, if you're in a legit arranged marriage, that essentially means that's almost like your twin, so to speak. And now, just let me explain for a second. When I say that because twins, as I stated, they have a bond like no other. Because for many reasons, for one, they are, genetically similar and or, just genetically very similar, dependent upon if they're identical as opposed to fraternal twins. They share a womb, depending on fraternal or identical twins. So, either way, they share, they share life. They share creation together. So they have a lot of bonds. So as I stated, most twins, if not actually all twins, they have these bonds that like no other, meaning they share energy. A lot of them can finish each other's sentences. They are genetically, they have spiritual bonds, and they have energetic bonds like no other. So that's what that would be. Like, if you're in a legit arranged marriage, when I say legit, that means you were created from conception, so to speak, conceptually customized for someone specifically. So there would be a successful marriage. So basically, you're kind of created to think similarly, but not exactly the same. You're still individuals, but the point of that is to have you on the same page, because you have to be on the same page in a marriage. So basically, they wanted you on the same page, but just individuals as well, on the same page, kind of thinking a lot. It was kind of a way, why they did it from conception, because it was a kind of a way to give you the kind of bond with your husband or wife that you would have with your twin, so to speak, or a brother or sister. So, not, a romantic one, but you're not related that way, but it's like you get that bond, as like it's the bond, that they were trying to achieve. Like as twins, they were trying to achieve that bond as twins had, so to speak, with a husband and a wife, so there would be success in the marriage. Just like twins, though, they have these bonds like no other, but they're individuals, even more than twins. If you have multiples, triplets, quintuplets, quadruplets, if any types of multiples, and brothers or sisters, siblings, doesn't even have to be twins. They many times are similar, but they're not always going to be the same. Even identical twins are individuals. They're not exactly the same. Even though they have the same DNA, they're perfect replicas of each other genetically, but they're still individuals. You know what I mean? So that's the concept of an arranged marriage from conception. And I just want to, I'll go more into that at some point, but that's the basis of arranged marriages. But also, so, okay, my arranged marriage was arranged by my father, Ra, who I also will talk more about. Ra really has his own kind of, his own subject matter, his own section, really, because it's very complex. Ra's very complex. Ra's very complex, so I will talk more about Ra as well. But Ra, my father, as I stated, the ancient Egyptian king of the gods and the creator of everything, the creator of the universe, the creator of the atmosphere, the creator of many things, and just, God, basically, Basically, he arranged my arranged marriage, which was with, as I stated, Ptah, who was my, my the direct descendant of Ptah would be Michael Dean. So that's Ptah's physical descendant, his physical descendant. So, yes, but, Ptah, that was who my arranged marriage was to. And basically, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Okay, so basically, me and Ptah were created to be together from birth. Okay, even before I was born, he's 5 years older than me, so he would have been born first, and even at his birth, they would have already known that, who was going to be created for me. You prepare in certain creations. So he was born, and they knew they would let a few years go past before my creation and birth came, so they could maintain that age where the male is older. So I was his self as well. We were created to be together, and so basically we would have met when we were children, as I stated, and eventually before the wedding, well, not before the wedding, but eventually you're not permitted to see or even have any contact with your future spouse, because they did that for a reason as well. Because as I stated, when you're children, you don't have a lot of romantic feelings on your mind as young children. Well, we didn't. We were playing around. We were having fun. It was kind of like, oh, cooties and that type of thing. So, but as the children got a little older, they separated them from their future spouse because they didn't want any premature romantic things happening. It was monitored. The arranged marriages were monitored. The children were monitored. So it wasn't any shady things going on as children much, But as they knew, as the children would get older, they would start to develop, romantic feelings and sexual feelings and things like that. So this is why they would separate them at a certain age. They were not permitted to see each other or speak for a certain amount of time. And then usually you got to meet briefly, just like on Coming to America. You got to meet briefly before the wedding, and then see each other briefly before the wedding, and sometimes not until the altar itself. So that would create, we were separated and not permitted to see each other for many reasons, but the primary reasons being, as I stated, to prevent any romantic things or sexual things happening prior to marriage or just too young. Also to create a yearning for the person, because you meet, from a young age, this is going to be your husband, you know what I mean? This is going to be your wife. So, immediately you kind of have this connection, and you're already created conceptually to be together, so you already have a connection. Not really romantic at that time, but you have a very friend. The purpose was to create a friendship. This is why you met as children. You created a friendship, and you just knew you knew you were going to be married. So it's separating at some point the children would be also because, like I said, to create a yearning for that person, to create, you miss that person, you want to see that person, so that creates that. And as I said, it wasn't like you just kind of cut off everything from that person. You were told details about the person and what they were doing and how they were growing and what they were into, their interests, and they would tell each other, relay these things back to each of the children to keep them interested in their future spouse and whatnot. So you knew what their life was going like. You kind of knew things, not every single detail, but you knew, like, oh, this is what they're interested in now. This is, those types of things, so to speak. So it also would keep you interested in that person, and you were, and it worked because, that separation, it built anticipation, if I can rephrase it better. The anticipation was much greater, and, you missed that person, because you remembered, when you played as children, you remembered, the friendship. So, you missed that person. So it was like, it created anticipation. It created a yearning for that person, and it prevented any premature sexual things, premature romantic things. So those were the primary purposes of separating the arranged marriages after so long. So basically, so my arranged marriage is to Michael Dean, whose ancient name is Ptah. And I'll talk more about Ptah as well, because Ptah was a very important individual. He created many, many things. He was a god of creation. That was Ptah's position. So his family was very prestigious as well. I have a family tree uploaded onto my Instagram, and it basically states a family tree. So Ptah's parents, to my knowledge, well, according to that family tree, would have been Nut, the goddess Nut. Nanette was her ancient name. Nut or Nanette, those are the same people. And his father, I need to determine at this point, because I have not done any research really lately, because I've been going through a lot of things. But I do have to determine who his father was. And, basically, Mike Dean or Ptah would have been Eddie Murphy's character in Coming to America. Okay, and as I stated, I would have been Vanessa Bell Calloway's character in that movie. And I'm not going to get too much into that movie right now, because I have another whole section dedicated to various movies, various music, various just any types of music, movies, things like that, because I just want to explain kind of why. There's a reason a lot of artists, singers, actors, actresses, rappers, just all kind of entertainers, they and authors. There's all kinds of literature also that's relevant. So it's a lot. It's really a lot. So there's a reason that is. There's a reason for that, and I will explain that. So I don't want to get too much into Coming to America right now because I'll talk about that then. But basically, Mike Dean would be, as I stated, the physical descendant of Ptah. And basically, he is my arranged marriage, and I'm supposed to get married to him. And the child, I was always supposed to get married to him from my birth. So basically, what happens with marriage is this. I just also want to state this because it's relevant. But again, marriage is another topic on its own. What happens with marriage in regards to each of the 9 life cycles is this. When you get married to someone at any point in time or history, no matter what life cycle, you get married to someone, that bond lasts throughout the life cycle. It withstands death and life cycles, okay? And I'm going to explain this. Because when you marry someone, okay, you're spiritually becoming bonded to that person, okay? Now, whether you're in an arranged marriage or not, because if you're in a legit arranged marriage, you're already conceptually bonded, okay? So when you actually go through with the marriage, you're becoming spiritually bonded, okay? Those are what the vows are. You are vowing before, your religion, you're in a, wherever you get married, a church. It doesn't even have to be a church, because spirits are everywhere. God is everywhere. So anytime you take those vows, you are becoming spiritually bonded. So what that means is that those spiritual bonds withstand death, they withstand the various life cycles, unless certain things happen. And I'll explain that when I get into marriage in general. But that physical bond, it lasts throughout the life cycles. So this is why, if you have ever married someone throughout any of your life cycles, you will, in this life cycle, either different options. You will have married them again, because as I stated, that spiritual bond withstands the various life cycles. So you would be bonded already. So you basically will have married them all again in this life cycle, or you would have had some kind of relationship with them, a romantic relationship with them. Whether it was most likely it would have been some type of romantic relationship of some sort. Sometimes it could have been strictly a friendship, but most of the time you would have had some kind of romantic relationship or a romantic encounter with that person. So like I said, they're similar but not exactly the same. So if you have ever married anyone throughout any of the life cycles, in this particular life cycle, you would have married them again because you find each other. That spiritual bond connects you. So you, and the conceptual bond if you were in an arranged marriage. So somehow you find each other. It's like magnets. You know what I mean? A spiritual and a conceptual bond is like a magnet, so to speak. So somehow you're going to end up coming across that person again in your life, in each life cycle. So basically, because there was no such thing as a divorce. There was not a divorce in ancient times. So you couldn't just get a divorce. It wasn't like today. You couldn't just go get something annulled or divorced, So basically those bonds withstand the life cycles. So basically it's like a magnet. Somehow you will find each other again. just like friendships and other types of things. So basically, but I'll get into the five corners again, because there is a reason that, because we weren't like related that way, but we did something spiritually. We made a spiritual connection in our star, because there's five of us, so that's why the star is relevant. And I'll talk more about that when I get to the five corners, because that star is significant, and it's not witchcraft. We were not witches, we were goddesses. The thing of goddesses and witches, the difference is good and evil, you see. And the difference is many witches were mortal women or scorned deities or jealous deities that were trying to imitate goddesses or were jealous of goddesses. So that's where you get witches and goddesses. So we made a spiritual bond, the five corners, the star. We made a spiritual bond in a positive way. You know, there's a movie called The Craft, and I'm just using this as a reference because that was witchcraft. So that's not what we were doing. That was witchcraft in The Craft. So I just want to clarify that. I don't want people to watch that movie and think, oh, that they're witches, because we got accused of being that was an issue in a lot of the life cycles. We were accused of being witches, and that's not true. So we met very horrible experiences as a result of being accused of being witches, myself as well as them, and many other gods and goddesses, falsely accused of being witches. That was an issue for us. So I just want to clarify that we were not witches. So, you know, in the movie The Craft, they make kind of a pact together, though. There were four of them. They were witches. So they kind of made a pact where they became like spiritually bonded. So that's something like what we did, but it was in a positive note. It was not along the lines of witchcraft and black magic. It was godly magic, because that exists. Godly magic, obviously. And, you know, we made that kind of connection. So we became spiritually connected through a type of ritual or pact, so to speak, that we came up with ourselves, because we came up with that idea. We were like, oh, we're going to be the five corners. It was kind of like, oh, we're going to start a group or whatever. You know what I mean? It was kind of like that. That's how it started, you know. But it was not witchcraft. I just want to clarify that. There's a difference between that and what we were. We were goddesses. We were goddesses. So we were bonded spiritually. So back to marriage. So again, you're going to come across that person in your life, most likely some way romantically, some type of romantic encounter. Most likely, if you did not marry the person again, you would, you did not marry the person again, you would have at least had maybe a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or it could have been just a sexual encounter, you know, where you came across them, but you end up not marrying or having a long-term relationship. So that's most likely what would happen, but that's not always what happens. Sometimes you, for whatever reason, you never encounter the person physically, or you don't come across them in every life cycle, you know what I mean? But I'll talk more about that in marriage in general. So as I stated, I'm trying to focus on myself so I can just give you more information on myself. So basically, my arranged marriage is to Ptah. And, you know, Ra, you know, despite what we've been through, me and Ptah, throughout all the life cycles, and we've been through a lot, believe me, Ra still wants me to marry Ptah in this life cycle, because that is still my arranged marriage and who I'm expected to marry. So that is who is supposed to be the father of the unborn son I talked about in the last video. So that is who is intended to be in that position. So basically the king, he's supposed to be the king of he was a pharaoh. You know, he was the king. You know, so he was a pharaoh. At some point, as I stated, I became queen. He was a pharaoh. You know, of Egypt, and I was a queen of Egypt. So basically, through marriage, he became a pharaoh of Egypt, because him and his family, they were given the responsibility of reigning over another African kingdom. It had to be another African kingdom of great significance for him to be arranged to be married to the princess of Egypt. Because Egypt, as I stated, was the Mecca of the world, the source of all creation. The earth, well, here's how it went. Egypt was the Mecca of Africa. Africa was the Mecca of the world, but Egypt was also the Mecca of the world. You know, it was like the world's capital in ancient times. And, you know, Earth was the Mecca of the universe and of the galaxy. But, you know, Egypt, as I stated, it was the source of all creation. So that means Egypt was also the Mecca of the galaxy. So for him to be arranged to be married to me, his family was very, very, very important, very extremely important, trusted, and prestigious. So they would have been given reign over another very important African kingdom in ancient times, as seen on Coming to America. That would have been their kingdom. I'm just not sure as at this moment as to what this exact specific kingdom was, and I need to look into that, and also to who his father is, because his mother, as I stated, was Nut, the goddess Nut, who was the goddess of the heavens, I believe. A lot of things. You know, we had many positions, so she was very important. The goddess of heavens, the goddess of the sky, I believe. I want to say the goddess of the sky. No, see, I have to clarify this, but I believe the goddess of the heavens. So she was very important. So they're his family, his mom, his mother, and his father. So for him to be my arranged marriage, they were very significant and prestigious and trusted within ancient times. And they were given reign over another prestigious African kingdom. So that is who my arranged marriage is to. That is who is expected to father the unborn son and be my husband and be the king of the overseer, the king. Well, Ra would be the complete overseer, but you know, he would be the king and overseer of the afterlife, as well as I would be the queen and overseer of that as well. So he's the king through marriage, really, and it's the truth, because as I stated, they were given reign over another African kingdom. So by marriage, he became the Pharaoh of Egypt. So we're expected to be together. So basically, that is what's going on with that. And so, you know, as I stated, I'm at 58 minutes right now. Maybe I'll go a little bit over an hour, because I really just want to finish this part when it comes to marriage. Basically, I also had other husbands. Now that happened for different reasons, and Ptah also had other wives, and you know, many people had more than one wife or husband in ancient times. And I really have to explain that. I think I will in this video now, and then begin on that, because I just don't want to get too long-winded. So, but I will immediately start recording the next video, and then I'm done recording for today. And then hopefully I can have these uploaded tomorrow, but the issue is they upload so slowly. So hopefully I can have them uploaded, but at least they're recorded and ready to be upload it. So I'm going to end this one now, and then I'll start, go right into my marriages, more into detail on that. So I'm ending this now. All right.